Welcome back to the 80s at the Fixed Ops Roundtable. It's a great honor to welcome David Kain, who is the president of Kain Automotive, a very well known and notable name in our industry. Dave, welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable.
Ted, it's great to have a chance to speak with you, and it's always great to go back to the 80s. Obviously, that was a good time in my life. It was when I was really cracking into the automotive space. Had my first professional job and graduated from college, got married. So the 80s are a spectacular time in my life.
You and I can remember the 80s, and it's amazing because that's our theme for this event. How many folks who weren't yet alive or born yet in the 80s who are now, loving the 80s music and the 80s hair. So we're having a lot of fun.
Mhm. I bet. I bet.
Where did you, by the way, where did you break into the industry? Where did you start off, working in retail?
So it was one of those real true stories where I had little choice in the matter. My dad was a car dealer the day I was born. I was number six of nine children born to Jack and Kathy Kain, and we got carried in as pictures. And then we got carried in diapers, and then we were told to say hi to the customers and then work in the shop and work in the parts department. My first job was in the parts department as a young teenager. And I worked with Don Norville, our parts manager at our family's Ford store. And then I became a lot attendant, washed a lot of cars. I absolutely wore out the mechanics trying to learn everything there. And finally, my dad said, after you get out of school, I want you to sell cars if you're up for it. And that's what I did. I started selling cars full time in 1982. And wow, it's just hard to back away from it. So literally people say, how long have you been in the car business? And I say, well, professionally 40 years, but overall 62 years. So,
Your life.
as a
Yeah.
baby. Yeah, absolutely.
So, David, a lot of similarities in us in our age. We broke into the industry at the same time, 1982. I can
Yeah.
remember that selling Fords. The lineup was not exactly that great in 1982.
No, and it's so funny because when you look back and you see that the Ford Fairmont was one of the most spectacular sellers at their introduction, and now nobody could tell you what a Ford Fairmont is, except for those who might have sold it back then. But boy, we had an astute lineup with the Fairmont, the Pinto, and Fiestas, and all kinds of different cars. And now the Ford's all but out of the car business. It's interesting to see. We had no sport utilities except for what was coming with the Bronco 2. And yeah, it has really changed a lot in the time that you and I've been in the business.
We've seen a lot, and you've built a great name for yourself, David. Congratulations! You just had the
Thank
conference
you.
a couple weeks back, and I got a chance to see a lot of the testimonials, and you've really built a very very strong name and a strong community around David Kain and Kain Automotive.
Well, it's why we call it the Clients and Friends Workshop, because this is our 20th year as Kain Automotive, and during the event, what's wonderful is we get to reconnect with a lot of people that we work with throughout the year and that we haven't seen for quite a while. So it was great to shake a lot of hands and give a lot of hugs to people that you enjoy seeing. The speakers were phenomenal. They present a lot of real credible data. They will help you and I with our conversation today to understand what this future is going to look like for the next 8 to 12 months in the industry, and perhaps even beyond that. And we have our vendor Shark Tank. We have our best idea contest, and it was fun to give those trophies away and little money to the winners of the best idea contest.
I love how they compete, and they love it as well.
They do.
All right. So, with all this in context and in perspective, and with all that you and I have seen in automotive, let's talk a little bit about that coming up, that near future, because I think we're at a point of some change here in the industry. It's not going to be maybe what we've had the last year or two. David, can you paint a picture of how you think our industry is going to change over the next, 6 to 12 months, and maybe even a little bit beyond that?
Yeah. So, starting with variable ops, I think what we're recognizing is those generous profits that occurred during the inventory shortage, and not all brands have full lots, but we're starting to see a lot of lots fill up. There's a lot of competition for used vehicle inventory, and that's a big challenge. So dealers that early in the year started being aware of that, getting their sales teams really astute to the fact that they were going to perhaps have more negotiation and less gross profit. They'd have to get back to selling in volume if they wanted to retain those paychecks that they had during the latter part of 2022. And so what we've seen now, we're 4 months in, we've seen those dealers that did do a lot of preparation, did do a lot of development of their sales teams, really do a great job. And consequently, something that you and I are both very aware of is the need for loyalty to be built through the fixed ops. And the relationships that are started with the goodbye at the sales floor are picked up immediately by the first service visit, and the relationship of intent that, hey, if anything goes wrong, we're the first place to go. And you and I have both benefited from the fact that service really is the retention point for the operation. And I think that is the bell that I would like to ring really loudly for our clients is, let's make sure that that first interaction, that handoff from sales to service, goes really, really well. And additionally, as clients are coming through the buying cycle, recognizing that service is a great hand back to the sales department. I remember years ago, a name you may recognize, Eustace Wolfington,
Oh,
had a company called Half a Car, and he used to say, the point of sale is the point of
point of
resale.
resale. Yes.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that we are preparing for that eventual return. And I think going back and looking at 72 and 84-month agreements for
Mm.
financing, I don't think a lot of people are prepared for the fact that they'll be 4 or 5 years without extended service plans if they don't do that right away. So we'll probably see a whole new opportunity for selling of service contracts into the warranty period, because we're going to really hurt ourselves if 6 years into an 8-year contract or 7-year contract, someone's without warranty and they have a $2,000 or $3,000 repair. And I think that's where we're going to have to do a lot of service lane selling of service contracts to ensure that people are protected during their ownership.
That makes a lot of sense. And it's amazing you mentioned the name of Eustace Wolfington. It's amazing how you and I can recall, all the good phrasing and all the things that we learned, during those days, and how much he and that Ford plan, that pre-trade plan. We just had Bob Tasca the third on the show. How much that's
Oh,
impacted
wow.
the industry to this day. So
Yeah, that's a fun memory because that store in Seekonk, Massachusetts, everybody said, I want to be like the Tasca organization, and Bob used to come to the leasing events and talk to us and teach us what they were doing there. They were so far ahead of the game, and I think when you bring that up, Ted, I think we're going to have to come back with some level of innovation with ownership cycles, and really what I loved about that whole pre-trade and that shorten of the buying cycle is it brought guests back quicker.
quick.
And what I just forewarned about is these long ownership cycles. It won't curb a guest enthusiasm to want to get a new vehicle. It just, what are we going to do with the inequity? And that's going to be the big challenge.
And it made us excited about the potential incoming vehicles we had at the dealership as well. I remember,
Ah,
being able to know what was coming and when, and a lot of great things from that. You and I are seeing a lot of technology now in dealerships that are coming our way. I know at your conference you probably had no shortage of new technology that you're
yes.
showcasing as well. One of the things I want to ask you about is video, because video is now
Mhm.
being used not only in the service department, but throughout the sales process as well. Talk to us a little bit about that and the importance of, having that as part of your platform.
Yeah, and I know this is going to sound trite as I say it, but the old adage that a picture is worth 1,000 words, then what must a video be worth? And when you look at how people communicate, I've seen different studies, and they'll say, the words are the least important part of it. It's how it's our voice, what we do with the words, and our body language. And the body language is the dominant part of how we communicate. You and I, if we just had a screen with some slides and we weren't on here moving left and right, people probably get a little bored, but our voice really amplifies it. And if we just had words on the screen, they'd be like, ah. But when let's just look, for example, if I do a walk around to a guest who's interested in a used or a new vehicle, I bring that vehicle to life. I get to let them see me, hear me. I get to amplify when I see a part of that vehicle that I really like. Additionally, we like to follow up with features of the vehicle. So here's how the engine sounds. Here's what the wheels look like. Here's what the backup camera does. So I can tease the guest along during the buying process with those kind of features. Now, moving back to that handoff to the service department, I'm the general manager. I'm sitting here with my service director, and now I can sit here and say, hi, I'm David Kain, general manager here at the dealership. I want to introduce you to Ted Ings. He's our service director, and he's going to be taking over the relationship at this point. Ted, anything you'd like to say to welcome them to our dealership service operation? That becomes a very powerful handoff, and it affords that guest to be in a position to where they're like, oh, whoa, it wasn't just a handshake and we'll see you later, or hope not. It is, we're going to take care of you. And then you have service teams that then will send a welcome video if we schedule an appointment. Then we do the multi-point inspection video, which, oh my God, overwhelmingly
Yes.
amazing there. One of the finalists in our vendor Shark Tank, Snapcell, does a really remarkable job of utilizing that MPI strategy. And I can sit here and say, Mr. Ings, your brake wear is at a critical point. Your cabin air filter, we were concerned, and so on and so forth. But when I show that to you on a video and you're like, do not put that air filter back in my car, and please don't make me ride any further on those brakes. Now it's a lot more powerful. And I think also when a technician, even if they don't sound like the kindest, server at a fancy restaurant, if they gruffly say, Mr. Ings, I was a little concerned about this, that just really resonates, and it's
Sure.
authentic. And I believe video
Authentic.
works great for that.
It's authentic, and by the way, how powerful is that to have the factory trained technician, which only the dealer has, right, David? Being able to
Yeah.
tell that directly via video to the customer, it's extremely powerful. And like you said, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, I love that term now. What can a video be worth?
Yeah, it's
You're right.
amazing.
So powerful. Um, in fact, yeah, I see it's being used now throughout the process. I bought a vehicle 2 years back, when we were kind of coming out of the height of what happened a couple years ago. And I ordered it. When the vehicle arrived, the salesperson, rather than have me come to the store, did a walk around, showed me the video without me even having to be there. Here's your vehicle, Mr. Ings, which just came in, and took me around it and sent that to me. And I thought that was extremely powerful. I had never seen that before, done on the sales side. So I couldn't agree with you
Yeah.
more.
Yeah, it's really cool. And it also professionalizes both parts of the dealership. And if I'm in a position, you and I are comfortable with a camera on us like this broadcast today, but there are a lot of people that would say, oh, I don't mind showing the vehicle and being the voiceover, but I don't want to do it. But what happens with the development of the employee when you can get them comfortable with the camera? They can get that positive reinforcement from a guest who says, oh my God, I love that video. Then next thing you know, the technician who was scared of the camera sitting there going, I'll show you how this is done. My guests love me, and it really, really helps them blossom.
I love it. David, in closing today, what advice, here we are in the middle of May, middle of the second quarter, looking out over the balance of 2023. We've got dealers, managers watching today throughout retail. What advice would you have for our audience looking out over the balance of 2023 in terms of what they need to do to be prepared and be ready in our marketplace, because it's ever changing? And while they're extremely resilient, I know they look to leaders like David Kain for your recommendations and advice.
Well, I think the first bit of advice I would ask them to do is to pay real close attention to the earnings of your employees and compare 2022 earnings with 2023 earnings, and try to isolate those that might be at risk emotionally from saying, I bought a boat, I bought a different house, I have a more expensive lifestyle based on what my earnings were in 2021, 2022, and now what's going to happen, and work with those people vocationally to show that in any environment, you can still make a good living, a good income. We've got one client that we work with in Cleveland that has someone come in and work with them on investments and building up their savings accounts and things. And you and I both know that our industry sometimes, particularly on the sales side, is notorious for not saving or planning. And a lot of salespeople made huge paychecks and may not have a whole lot to speak for that in savings. So pay real close attention to the development of your team. Additionally, the personalization of your communications. We think we can get by with templates and we can get by with just treating everybody the same. Everybody that got their vehicle scheduled for service today is nervous about it, and we need to attend to their personal needs, their replacement transportation, what the cost is going to be, and be mindful of that. Same thing on the front end of the business. Be aware that any day that you're shopping for a car is scary, but it's also a huge day in their life. And if we make it about them and we quit trying to work the cash register and really make it an enjoyable experience, they'll come back again and again.
Great advice, David. I know our audience, many folks know you, know of you. They may not all have worked with you. If our audience wants to reach out to David Kain and learn more about you and what you do, what's the best way to do? I see the information scrolling at the bottom. What's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm no different than a lot of people. I'm really good at returning emails. Text works good. I've got a client, Joe Cooper, who says, don't leave me a voicemail, text me. So if you really want to get a hold of me, texting's really good. I also have teammates that are really astute and skilled at assisting dealers. So if they go to our website, they can reach out to Chelsea and Nick, and they'll be glad to assist them as well. So if I'm on an airplane, those guys, they're the next generation, and they're doing a wonderful job in taking care of our clients.
Well, David, on behalf of the Fixed Ops community and Fixed Ops Roundtable, thank you so much for spending your time today. Congratulations to you on all the success that you're having.
Thank you, Ted. It's all from working with people like you and having something to aim for the future. Thank you so much for holding us all to that higher standard.
David Kain, everybody, one of the great leaders in our industry, here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.